On Tuesday night, 12th of May, Jim Chalmers handed down what he called the most ambitious tax reform in 26 years. And depending on how your portfolio is structured, that statement is either slightly worrying or genuinely worth paying close attention to. This budget covered a lot of ground. Tax cuts for workers, changes to migration, aged care funding, and a higher charge every time you fly overseas. But for property investors, specifically two announcements that stand out. And I want to go through both of them with you today because the media coverage has been, let's say, incomplete. I've got the government fact sheet here, so we can go straight to the source. Not a headline, not a summary. These documents are from the Treasurer's Office that are published on the night of the budget. Before we get into the detail, a quick lay of the land. The government is projecting $28.3 billion deficit from 2026 to 2027 and a total spending of $833 billion. That is $47.5 billion up from the previous year. The headline personal tax measure is a mere $250 for working Australians tax offset, which won't actually show up in your bank account until July 2028. There's also a $1,000 instant tax deduction that you can claim without receipt from this year. Treasury is expecting growth to slow from 2.25% last year to 1.75% this year, particularly because of global oil prices running hotter than expected. So the economic backdrop isn't looking rosy. But for property investors, two measures that matter the most are changes to negative gearing and capital gains tax and new minimum tax on discretionary trust. I want to spend the rest of this video focusing specifically on those two items alone. From 1st of July 2027, you will only be able to negatively gear a residential investment property if it's a new build. Established properties purchased from the night of the budget announcement, 7:30 p.m. on 12th of May 2026, will no longer be eligible for negative gearing from that date. Now, the important nuance, if you already own investment property prior to this time, nothing changes for you. You can keep negatively gearing it for as long as you hold it. If you bought a property before Tuesday night, you are grandfathered in. The change only bites new purchases for established properties from that point onwards. And if you're carrying rental losses for new established properties you buy after that announcement, those losses don't disappear. They get carried forward and can offset against any future residential property income, including capital gains when you eventually sell. The carve-out for new builds is deliberate. The government wants to push investor demand toward new housing supply rather than established stock. New builds remain fully negatively gearable before and after July 2027. Let me show you a live example of the impact of negative gearing as a direct result of the changes that the government has announced. Here's a client, let's call him John. He's single, living in Sydney, postcode 2000. His income is $150,000 and he currently has an owner-occupied property valued at $1 million that he's currently owns with a mortgage. And he's looking to buy an investment property for $750,000. That property is also owned with a mortgage, and that's going to be owned 100% by John. He's earning $700 a week in rent from that property, and we're expecting $150 per month in investment property expenses. So the current loan that he has at the moment on his owner-occupied property is $350,000. He's looking to extract equity out of that property to complete the purchase of the $750,000 property, which will be a loan of $600,000 against the property that he's buying, plus $150,000 that'll go against his $1 million owner-occupied property. With tax deductibility, he has got lender options with the major banks that can support his purchase. We've also got access to non-major banks that can actually support this transaction very, very comfortably. So the total loan that he's looking to go for is easily serviceable with major banks because of negative gearing. If we remove tax deductibility, or in other words, negative gearing, you can see very clearly that his borrowing power shifts completely to the point that major banks are no longer within that space, and now he'd need to look at exploring some of the non-conforming, non-major banks to do the same thing that he was able to do with major banks when negative gearing was an option. Next up on the chopping block, the CGT change. This one is a bit more involved, so I want to walk you through it carefully. Right now, if you hold an asset for more than 12 months and you sell it, you get a 50% CGT discount, meaning you only pay tax on half of the gain. That has been the rule since 1999. From 1st of July 2027, that 50% flat discount is being replaced with two things. Number one, cost-based indexation and a 30% minimum tax on capital gains. Cost-based indexation means your purchase price gets adjusted for inflation over the time you held the asset. So, if you bought shares for $100 and inflation ran at 2.5% per year for 5 years, your cost base becomes roughly $113 instead of the $100. Your taxable gain is calculated on the real gain, what you made above inflation, rather than the nominal gain. Whether this makes you better or worse off than the current 50% capital gains discount depends on your returns. If your asset grew at a low rate, indexation could mean you actually pay less tax. If your asset grew quickly, say a well-located property compounding at 7 to 8% annually, you will likely pay more. The government's own modeling shows this clearly. Someone with a 5% annual return on a house held for roughly 10 years would pay $8,000 more in tax, whereas someone with a 7.5% return on the same asset held in the same period would pay nearly $59,000 more. That gap matters, and it depends almost entirely on how well your asset actually performs. The minimum 30% capital gains is the second piece. Even if your marginal rate in the year you sell is low, say you're semi-retired, your income is $40,000, the government wants to make sure you're still paying at least 30% on the real gain. The rationale is that investors who defer selling assets in a low income year to access a lower tax rate are getting a tax advantage over ordinary wage earners. This closes that off. For anything you already own, the CGT reform only applies to gains you accrue after the 1st of July 2027. Gains made before that date are still covered under the 50% discount. So if you bought a property in 2020, the appreciation from that property from 2020 to 1st of July 2027 is still taxed under the same rules. Only the growth from July 2027 onwards gets treated under the new indexation and minimum wage tax system. You'll either need to get a valuation done as at 1st of July 2027 or use ATO's apportionment formula to estimate the split. One more thing worth noting is new residential builds get a choice. When you sell a new build, you can either elect the old 50% discount or the new indexation model, whichever gives you the better outcome. That's a meaningful concession for people who go down the path to build a new property. Next up is discretionary trust changes. And I want to touch on this because a number of investors hold their property portfolios inside family trusts. From 1st of July 2028, discretionary trusts will pay a minimum 30% tax on the taxable income. The way trusts have worked in the past is that the trustee gets to decide each year how to distribute income amongst the beneficiaries. If some of those beneficiaries are on a lower marginal tax rate, for example, an adult child staying at home full-time or a spouse who doesn't work, the trust distributes income to them and the family as a whole pays less tax. This is called income splitting. It has been completely legal and it's been widely used. Under the new rule, the trustee pays 30% on the trust's taxable income first. Beneficiaries can claim a non-refundable credit for the tax when they lodge their own tax returns, so you're not double taxed, but you can't get below 30% regardless of how you distribute. For investors using a discretionary trust for purely income splitting purposes, this structure becomes significantly less tax efficient from July 2028. There is rollover relief available for 3 years from 1st of July if you want to restructure out of a discretionary trust into a company or a fixed trust. That's a genuine window to act without triggering capital gains tax or income tax on the restructure itself. About half of the discretionary trusts aren't expected to be affected in any given year. If everyone you're distributing income to is already on or above the 30% marginal tax rate, the minimum tax changes nothing. But if income splitting to lower tax rate beneficiaries has been a meaningful part of your tax strategy, this is worth reviewing with your advisor before 2028. So to pull this all together, if you hold an established investment property purchased before Tuesday night, the negative gearing rules haven't changed for you. Your CGT position on the gains before July 2027 is also unchanged. The exposure comes on new purchases for established property from this point forward and on investment returns after July 2027 across all assets. If you hold assets in discretionary trust, that's worth a specific conversation, particularly around restructuring before the 2028 deadline makes sense in your situation. Both of these fact sheets are publicly available on the budget website. I've linked them in below so you can have a read of the actual resource rather than relying on a third-party summary. If you've got questions about how any of this applies to you or your specific situation, click on the link below to book a call.